The phone buzzed at 5:47 a.m., dragging me from the kind of restless sleep that comes when you know the next day will change everything. Dad's surgery was scheduled for 8 o'clock sharp, triple bypass, the kind of procedure that makes you realize how fragile everything really is. I rolled over, expecting to find Iris already awake, maybe making coffee or checking her phone like she always did. Instead, she was sitting up in bed, typing furiously on her device with that focused expression she usually reserved for her wellness business deals. "Morning," I said, my voice still thick with sleep. "Ready for today?" She didn't look up. "About that, Hale, I can't make it to the hospital." The words hit me like cold water. "What do you mean you can't make it?" "Brunch with the girls is sacred. You know how important these connections are for my business. Miranda finally agreed to meet with the whole group, and she's bringing her investor contacts. This could change everything for the wellness center expansion." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline or the smile that would tell me she was joking. Neither came. Hale Torvell, my wife of 3 years, was choosing mimosas over my father's critical, make-or-break surgery. "Iris, this is my dad we're talking about. The man who raised me. The surgery that we've been planning around for weeks." She finally looked at me, her green eyes showing more irritation than sympathy. "Hale, you're being dramatic. Your father will be fine. He's got excellent doctors, and you'll be there. What exactly would I accomplish by sitting in some sterile waiting room when I could be securing our financial future?" The rational part of my brain understood her business was important. As a trauma therapist, I'd learned to see situations from multiple perspectives. But the son in me, the husband who expected basic support during family crises, felt something crack inside. "Right," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. "Totally understand. Brunch with the girls is sacred." She smiled, apparently relieved that I wasn't going to fight about it. "Exactly. You get it. This is why our marriage works, Hale. We support each other's priorities." I got dressed in silence while Iris returned to her phone, probably coordinating outfit choices or reservation details. The irony wasn't lost on me that she spent more energy planning a 2-hour meal than she had preparing for my father's surgery. By 7 a.m., I was driving through Portland's early morning traffic toward the hospital. The city looked different when you're heading toward uncertainty. Sharper somehow, like everything was outlined in anxiety. I'd driven this route dozens of times for work, but today the familiar streets felt foreign. My phone rang as I pulled into the hospital parking garage. Iris's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," I answered, thinking maybe she'd changed her mind. "Just wanted to wish your dad good luck," she said, though I could hear the clink of glasses and laughter in the background. "Tell him I'm thinking about him." "Will do." I paused, listening to what sounded like a restaurant full of people having the time of their lives. Sounds like a great turnout for brunch. "Oh, it's amazing. Miranda brought her whole network. I think we're going to be here for hours." "Enjoy your sacred time," I said, and ended the call. Dad's surgery took 6 hours. 6 hours of pacing hospital corridors, drinking terrible coffee, and watching other families navigate their own crises. Dr. Patricia Wells, the cardiac surgeon, finally emerged at 3 p.m., looking tired but satisfied. "The procedure went well," she said, pulling off her surgical cap. "We found more blockage than the imaging showed, but we got everything cleared. He's stable and should make a full recovery." Relief flooded through me like warm water. "When can I see him?" "He's in recovery now. Give us another hour to get him settled, then you can visit briefly." I called Iris immediately. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I tried again 20 minutes later with the same result. By the time Dad was awake and asking for updates, I still hadn't heard from my wife. "Where's Iris?" Dad asked, his voice hoarse from the breathing tube. Despite the circumstances, his eyes were sharp and alert. Retirement from his government job hadn't dulled Marcus Trenwick's awareness of his surroundings. "Brunch ran long," I said, which was technically true. He raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. Dad had never been Iris's biggest fan, though he'd kept his opinions to himself. Something about her not feeling genuine he'd mentioned once after a few drinks. At 5 p.m., as I was helping Dad with his first post-surgery meal, my phone finally rang. "Hale!" Iris's voice was panicked, higher than usual. "My car's been towed, and my credit cards aren't working. The restaurant is threatening to call the police." I looked at Dad, who was watching me with interest despite his medication. "Sorry to hear that," I said calmly. "I'm at brunch with Dad at the hospital. It's pretty sacred, too." "What? Hale, this isn't funny. I need help." "I'm sure you'll figure it out. Dad's awake now and he's asking about you. Put him on the phone. He's eating. Doctor's orders. First solid food since yesterday." I paused, letting that sink in. Funny thing about the meal, though, he specifically requested the recovery foods you've been preparing for him all week. The ones you spent so much time researching and making. Silence on the other end. "Iris, you there?" Yes. Look, can we talk about my car situation later? I really need help right now." "Like I said, I'm at brunch. Sacred time. Talk soon." I ended the call and looked at Dad, who was smiling despite the tubes and monitors surrounding him. "Brunch with Dad is sacred," he repeated slowly. "I like that." The call came at 11 p.m., 3 hours after I'd finally gotten home and collapsed on the couch. Dr. Wells sounded concerned, but controlled. "Mr. Trenwick, we need you back at the hospital. Your father had an allergic reaction. We've got it under control, but we need to discuss the results of some tests we ran." I was dressed and driving before she finished explaining. Allergic reaction? Dad was careful about his allergies, especially the severe walnut allergy he'd developed in his 50s. He carried an EpiPen and read every food label twice. When I arrived, Dad was awake but looked shaken. Dr. Wells pulled me aside before I could ask questions. "The good news is he's stable. We caught the reaction quickly and administered epinephrine. The concerning news is what caused it." She handed me a tablet showing test results I didn't understand. "We ran a full toxicology panel when he came in with the reaction. There were significant traces of walnut proteins in his system, despite him being NPO, nothing by mouth, since yesterday morning." "That's impossible," I said. "He knows about his allergy. He's obsessive about checking ingredients." "That's what's troubling. The levels suggest recent exposure, not residual contamination. Someone would have had to deliberately introduce walnut proteins into his food or medication." The words hung in the air like smoke. Deliberately. Someone had deliberately exposed my father to his potentially lethal allergen. "Who had access to his food?" Dr. Wells asked. I thought about the recovery meals Iris had been preparing, the special organic ingredients she'd researched, the hours she'd spent in the kitchen claiming she wanted everything to be perfect for his post-surgery nutrition. "My wife," I said quietly. "She's been preparing his recovery meals for weeks." Dr. Wells nodded grimly. "We'll need to test those meals. And Mr. Trenwick, I have to ask, is there any reason someone would want to harm your father?" I stared at the test results, thinking about Iris's sudden emergency brunch, her panic about the towed car, her insistence that Dad's surgery wasn't important enough to interrupt her social plans. "I'm starting to think there might be," I said. The next morning, I called in sick to the clinic where I worked as a trauma therapist. Instead of helping other people process their psychological wounds, I was discovering my own family was under attack. Nora Marlin arrived at my apartment at 9 a.m. sharp, carrying a laptop bag and wearing the kind of focused expression that meant business. We'd served together overseas before I got into therapy, and she'd transitioned her military intelligence skills into civilian digital forensics. If anyone could help me figure out what Iris was really up to, it was Nora. "Show me everything," she said, setting up her equipment on my kitchen table. Phones, computers, tablets, anything she's used. I handed over Iris's laptop, the one she claimed was only for her wellness business. She's been acting strange for weeks. Secretive phone calls, unexplained meetings, and now this thing with my dad. Nora's fingers flew across her keyboard, running programs I didn't recognize. Tell me about the marriage. Any financial irregularities? Unexplained expenses? She handles most of our finances. Says I'm too busy with patients to worry about money management. The words sounded naive even as I said them. Classic control tactic, Nora muttered, not looking up from the screen. Separate the target from their resources, create dependency. Within an hour, she'd cracked Iris's password protection and was scrolling through files that made my stomach turn. Hale, look at this. She turned the laptop toward me, showing a spreadsheet labeled HT Financial Profile. She's been documenting your income, expenses, savings, even your father's pension and medical costs. The spreadsheet was detailed to an almost obsessive degree. Every paycheck I'd received, every therapy session I'd billed, even estimates of my future earning potential based on my client load. Why would she need this level of detail? I asked. Keep looking. Nora scrolled down to another tab labeled MT Background. My father's information filled the screen: military service, government employment, security clearances, even details about his post-retirement consulting work. She's been investigating us, I said, the realization hitting like a physical blow. It gets worse. Nora opened another file. Look at this email thread. The messages were between Iris and someone identified only as LC. The subject line read, Target Assessment Update. LC. How's the timeline looking? ET. Slower than expected. Target is more observant than initial assessment suggested. Father remains protective and suspicious. LC. Surgery creates opportunity. Natural stress, medical emergency, financial pressure. IT. Agreed. Will accelerate timeline post-procedure. I read the exchange 3 times before the implications fully sank in. She's been planning this, I said. The surgery, the timing, everything. Nora nodded grimly. And whoever LC is, they're coordinating with her. This isn't a marriage, Hale. It's an operation. At 2 p.m., I sat in the office of James Morrison, the estate attorney Dad had hired to update his will before the surgery. Morrison was old-school Portland legal: oak desk, leather chairs, and the kind of measured speech that came from 40 years of handling family crises. There are some irregularities we need to discuss, Morrison said, spreading documents across his desk. Irregularities involving your wife and your financial accounts. He handed me a bank statement I'd never seen before. This account was opened 18 months ago using your social security number and a power of attorney document bearing your signature. I studied the signature. It looked like mine, but I had no memory of signing any power of attorney. The account shows regular monthly transfers of $3,200, Morrison continued. The memo line indicates charitable donation to Children's Future Foundation. I've never heard of that foundation. That's because it doesn't exist as a registered charity. Morrison pulled out another document. However, we did trace where the money actually goes. Child support payments to one Melissa Chen in Sacramento, California. The room seemed to tilt. Child support? For her daughter Emma, age 7. According to the court records, the father is listed as anonymous donor, but the payments come from this account in your name. I stared at the documents, trying to process what I was hearing. You're saying Iris has a daughter? A daughter she's never mentioned to you, whose support she's been paying using money from accounts opened in your name without your knowledge. Morrison leaned back in his chair, his expression sympathetic but professional. Mr. Trenwick, this suggests a level of deception that goes well beyond marital problems. Your wife has been systematically accessing your resources for purposes you weren't aware of. My phone buzzed with a text from Iris. Need to talk. Coming home early. We need to discuss some things. I showed the message to Morrison, who frowned. Mr. Trenwick, I strongly advise you not to confront your wife about this directly. If she's been operating at this level of deception, there's no telling how she might react to being exposed. But I was already standing, gathering the documents. She's been poisoning my father and stealing my money to support a secret child. I think the time for careful approaches has passed. Morrison handed me a business card. Call me if you need immediate legal assistance. And Mr. Trenwick, document everything. Iris was waiting in our living room when I got home, sitting on the white leather couch she'd insisted we buy despite my protests about practicality. She'd changed from her brunch outfit into yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her serious conversation uniform. Hale, we need to talk about yesterday, she began, but I cut her off. We need to talk about a lot of things. I dropped the bank statements on the coffee table. Starting with Emma Chen. Her face went pale, but she recovered quickly. I can explain that. Please do. Explain how you've been stealing money from accounts opened in my name to pay child support for a daughter you never mentioned. Iris stood up, pacing to the window. It's complicated. Emma is from a previous relationship. The father disappeared, and I needed help with support payments. I was going to tell you, but the timing never seemed right. The timing never seemed right in 3 years of marriage? You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Her voice rose, taking on the sharp edge it got when she felt cornered. The wellness business, the financial stress, trying to be the perfect wife while managing a child you didn't know about. So you decided to forge my signature and steal my money? It's not stealing. We're married. What's yours is mine. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos Nora had taken of her laptop files. What about this? The spreadsheets documenting my income, my father's background, the emails about target assessment. For the first time since I'd known her, Iris looked genuinely afraid. You went through my computer? Answer the question. She was quiet for a long moment, then her expression hardened. Fine. You want the truth? I've been protecting myself. Marriage to someone in your profession, with your family background, requires careful planning. My family background? Your father's government connections, your access to medical records through your therapy practice, your financial resources. I needed to understand what I was getting into. The casual way she said it, like our marriage was a business acquisition, made my hands shake with anger. And the walnut exposure? Was that part of your careful planning too? Her eyes flashed. I don't know what you're talking about. The hospital found walnut proteins in Dad's system, in the recovery meals you prepared. That's impossible. I was careful about his allergies. I stood up, moving closer to her. Were you? Or was this another part of your timeline acceleration? For a moment, I thought she might confess. Instead, she pulled out her phone. I think we need some space to cool down, she said, dialing a number. I'm going to stay with Miranda for a few days. Good idea, I said. Give us both time to think about our priorities. As she packed a bag, I made my own phone call. Nora, it's time for phase 2. The next morning, Nora and I sat in a downtown coffee shop, planning our next moves like the military operation this had become. She'd spent the night digging deeper into Iris's digital footprint, and what she'd found was disturbing. The wellness business is mostly a front, Nora said, sliding a folder across the table. Real revenue is maybe 20% of what she claims. The rest is fabricated for tax purposes and to justify the lifestyle. I flipped through printouts of financial records, business filings, and tax documents. Where's the real money coming from? That's where it gets interesting. Nora pulled out her laptop. Remember the emails with LC? I traced the IP addresses. They're coming from a consulting firm called Meridian Strategic Solutions. Never heard of them. Most people haven't. They specialize in what they call relationship intelligence, corporate espionage through personal connections. The implications made my coffee taste like ash. You're saying Iris is a professional? I'm saying your wife isn't who she claims to be. Her wellness business, her social media presence, even her friend network, It's all carefully constructed to create access to specific types of people. People like me. People like your father. Nora turned her laptop screen toward me. Look at this client list I found buried in their servers. The names meant nothing to me, but the job descriptions told a story. Retired intelligence officers, defense contractors, medical professionals with security clearances, government consultants. They're targeting people with access to sensitive information, I said, and their families, spouses, children, anyone who might have access to documents, conversations, or financial information. I thought about all the times Iris had asked casual questions about my clients, my father's work, the medical conferences I attended. Questions that had seemed like normal spousal interest. How long do you think this has been going on? Nora closed her laptop. Based on the email timestamps, she's been reporting on you since about 6 months after you got married. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Not just the cheating or the money. The entire relationship had been a lie. There's something else, Nora said quietly. The child support payments, they're not going to Sacramento anymore. They've been redirected to an account in the Cayman Islands. So Emma might not even exist? Emma exists. I found school records, medical files. But the money isn't supporting her anymore. It's funding something else. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to meet. Tonight. 8 p.m., Pioneer Courthouse Square. Come alone. Nora read the message over my shoulder. That's not Iris's number. No, I said, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. I think that's LC. Pioneer Courthouse Square at 8 p.m. was busy enough to provide cover, but open enough to spot surveillance. I arrived 15 minutes early and positioned myself near the fountain, watching the crowd for anyone who seemed too interested in their surroundings. He approached at exactly 8 o'clock. Medium height, expensive suit, the kind of forgettable face that probably served him well in his line of work. He sat down on the fountain edge about 6 feet away, not looking at me directly. Mr. Trenwick, thank you for coming. You're LC. Liam Carr. I think we need to discuss your wife. I turned to face him fully. Ex-wife, as of this morning. I filed papers. For the first time, he looked surprised. That's unfortunate and premature. Premature for what? Carr reached into his jacket and pulled out a tablet, swiping to a video file. Before you make any permanent decisions, you should see this. The video showed me in my home office, apparently during a therapy session with a client. I was shouting, throwing papers, clearly in some kind of emotional breakdown. The timestamp showed it was from last week. I don't remember this, I said. PTSD episodes can be difficult to recall, Carr said sympathetically, especially when they involve threatening behavior toward vulnerable patients. I watched myself on the screen, horrified. The person in the video looked unhinged, dangerous. This isn't real. The medical board might disagree, so might your licensing authority and your patients. Carr swiped to another video, this one showing me apparently striking someone off camera. Domestic violence is a serious concern for mental health professionals. These are fabricated. Can you prove that? More importantly, can you prove it before the videos are sent to every relevant authority and posted on every social media platform your clients use? I stared at the tablet, understanding the trap I was in. What do you want? Iris returns home. The divorce filing is withdrawn. Your father's medical records and any classified materials in his possession are made available for review. My father doesn't have classified materials. Carr smiled. Mr. Trenwick, your father spent 30 years in intelligence operations. Men like that don't retire. They just change their official status. He stood up, straightening his suit jacket. You have 48 hours to restore your marriage and provide the materials we need. Otherwise, these videos begin circulating, along with some additional evidence about your unstable mental state and history of violence. And if I comply, Iris continues her work, you continue yours, and everyone benefits from the arrangement. Think of it as an extended consulting contract. He walked away, disappearing into the evening crowd before I could respond. I sat by the fountain for another 20 minutes, watching the videos on repeat and trying to figure out how they'd been made. The answer came to me as I was driving home. The home security system Iris had insisted we install, the cameras she'd positioned to protect us, had been recording everything, providing raw footage for whatever digital manipulation they'd used to create these scenes. I called Nora from my car. They've got fabricated videos of me threatening patients and committing domestic violence. Professional grade work. How professional? Good enough to destroy my career and probably land me in prison. There was a long pause. Hale, we need to bring your father into this. Whatever they want from him, it's worth more than your marriage or your career. Dad's still recovering from surgery. Dad's a 30-year intelligence veteran who apparently has something they're willing to commit multiple felonies to obtain. I think he can handle the stress. She was right. This had gone beyond marriage problems or even criminal fraud. This was espionage, and I was in over my head. Set up a meeting, I said. It's time to find out what my father really did for a living. Dad was sitting up in his hospital bed when Nora and I arrived the next morning, looking more alert than he had since before the surgery. The monitors showed his vitals were strong, and there was something in his eyes that reminded me of the father I'd known growing up. Sharp, focused, dangerous when necessary. Nora Marlin, he said as we walked in. I remember you from Hale's deployment. Good to see you again. Sir, wish it were under better circumstances. Dad gestured for us to sit down. Hale filled me in on some of the situation. Show me what you found. Nora spread printouts across his bedside table. Financial records, email threads, the fabricated videos, corporate documents for Meridian Strategic Solutions. Dad studied everything with the methodical attention of someone trained to analyze intelligence. Sophisticated operation, he said finally. Long-term placement, financial manipulation, digital fabrication, graduated pressure tactics. This isn't amateur hour. Dad, what do they want from you? He was quiet for a long moment, staring out the hospital window at the Portland skyline. I spent most of my career in counterintelligence, Eastern European operations specifically. When the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of intelligence assets went freelance, selling information, running private operations for whoever paid best. You think that's who we're dealing with? I think your wife is very good at her job, and her job is getting close to people like you to gain access to people like me. He picked up one of the email printouts. The timeline they're discussing corresponds with some consulting work I've been doing for the current administration. What kind of consulting? The kind that involves identifying foreign intelligence assets operating in American cities. Dad's smile was grim. Specifically, assets using romantic relationships to gather information on former and current intelligence officers. The irony was almost funny. Iris had targeted our family to gain access to information about operations designed to catch people exactly like her. So what do? I asked. Dad reached for his phone. We turn this into a counterintelligence operation. Nora, I need you to set up secure communications with some contacts of mine. Hale, you're going to go home and tell your wife you've reconsidered the divorce. You want me to go back to her? I want you to make her think you're going back to her. There's a difference. Dad's expression was serious. These people have invested 3 years in this operation. They're not going to walk away because you filed divorce papers. They'll escalate until they get what they want or until we stop them. How do we stop them? By giving them exactly what they think they want, while documenting everything they do to get it. Dad pulled out a business card I'd never seen before. Call this number. Tell them Marcus Trenwick needs to schedule a debrief. Emergency priority. I looked at the card. It was blank except for a phone number. Dad, Are you sure you're retired? Son, people in my line of work never really retire. We just get better at hiding what we do. I called Iris that afternoon, using the script Dad and his contacts had provided. The goal was to sound defeated, desperate, and willing to cooperate. Iris, I've been thinking about what you said, about us needing space. Hale? Her voice was cautious. Are you okay? You sound different. I'm tired. This whole thing with Dad, the stress, the accusations, I think I overreacted. What are you saying? I'm saying, maybe we can work this out. The divorce papers, the accusations about Emma, maybe we can find a way through this. There was a long pause. What about the other issues? Your father's suspicions? Dad's old and paranoid. His surgery was successful and he's going to be fine. I think I let his conspiracy theories get to me. And the financial arrangements? I took a deep breath, hating every word I was about to say. If Emma is your daughter, then supporting her is part of supporting you. We're married. I should have been more understanding. Oh, Hale. Relief flooded her voice. I was so worried we'd lost each other over this misunderstanding. Can you come home tonight? I think we need to talk face to face. Of course. I'll be there by 7. After I hung up, I looked around our apartment with new eyes. Nora's team had spent the day installing surveillance equipment that would document everything Iris said and did. Dad's contacts had provided legal authorization that I didn't fully understand, but that apparently made the surveillance admissible in federal court. At 6:45, there was a knock on my door. I expected Iris, but instead found Liam Carr standing in my hallway. Mr. Trenwick, I understand you've had a change of heart. Iris is coming home. The divorce is off. What more do you want? A gesture of good faith. Something to demonstrate that you understand the new nature of your relationship with your wife. He handed me a thumb drive. Your father's consulting files, current projects, contact lists, operational summaries. Upload everything to this device by tomorrow night. And if I refuse? The videos we discussed go public tomorrow morning. Your medical license gets suspended pending investigation. Your father's recovery becomes much more complicated. I took the thumb drive, feeling its weight like a stone in my palm. How do I know you'll keep your word? You don't. But you know what happens if you don't keep yours. He left without another word. 10 minutes later, Iris arrived, carrying flowers and wearing the kind of smile that had fooled me for 3 years. Hale, I'm so glad we can work through this. I hugged her, thinking about the recording equipment documenting every word, every gesture, every lie. Me too, I said. I've missed you. As she settled back into our apartment, chatting about her time at Miranda's and her plans for the wellness business, I realized this was the most honest our marriage had ever been. For the first time, we were both exactly who we really were, a federal asset gathering evidence and a foreign intelligence operative walking into a trap. The only question was which one of us would spring first. I didn't upload anything to the thumb drive. Instead, I copied it. Every file Iris thought she'd hidden, every transfer, every message to Carr, every quietly altered document. Dad's people had already mirrored our network the moment Iris crossed the threshold back into the apartment. By the time she fell asleep beside me, breathing slow, arm draped possessively across my chest, the operation was already over. At 6:12 a.m., 3 unmarked vehicles rolled into the parking lot. I woke Iris with a gentle shake. Honey, I said softly, something's wrong with your car again. She sat up, annoyed. Then she heard the knock. Not the polite kind, the final kind. By the time the door came down, she was already reaching for her phone. Too late. Carr never even made it through the hallway. Federal agents met him in the stairwell with evidence he couldn't outrun, deep fakes he couldn't explain, and financial trails that led straight offshore. Iris didn't scream. That surprised me. She just looked at me, finally understanding. You planned this, she said. No, I replied. You did. I just stopped apologizing for it. As they led her away, she twisted back once, eyes sharp, desperate. You chose your father over me. I shook my head. No, you chose brunch over everything. Dad was discharged 2 days later. Full recovery, strong heart, clear future. Mine took longer, but it was cleaner. The charges against me vanished once the fabricated videos were exposed. Meridian Strategic Solutions folded overnight. Iris took a plea deal that ensured she'd never operate under another name again. And me? I learned something simple, something permanent. Love isn't proven in grand gestures or curated loyalty. It's proven in waiting rooms, in hard chairs, in silence, in choosing presence when there's nothing to gain. Some things really are sacred, just not brunch.